Imagine if the story of human civilization did not begin when we are told. Imagine if, long before our earliest known cities, long before the first recorded kings and empires, another era of ingenuity already carried the weight of history. A planet with oceans, continents, and perhaps societies who walked under a familiar sky yet remain utterly forgotten. That planet is Earth. And if civilizations once lived here, in epochs lost to our memory, then our timeline is not the beginning at all, but only the continuation of something much older, a legacy buried deep. Stay with this thought until the end, because it changes everything about how we understand where we come from and what it means to be human. For as long as we have looked into the past, our history books have painted a picture of steady, linear progress. It is a comfortable narrative, one of humanity slowly emerging from the Stone Age, gradually discovering agriculture, then metals, then writing, building ever upward towards the complexity of today. We chart a course from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled villages, then to the first great cities of Mesopotamia and Egypt, a continuous ascent from primitive beginnings to advanced societies. This is the story we are taught, the foundation of our understanding of who we are and how we got here. But beneath this familiar narrative, there has always been something more. The established timeline, so neat and orderly, has never quite accounted for everything. It is not just a straightforward line from point A to point B. Even through the lens of modern archaeology, people could see changing patterns, hints of advanced knowledge, and colossal structures that seemed almost out of place. This difference made our planet the most likely candidate for a much deeper history. By the late 19th century and into the 20th, some researchers were convinced they could see vast networks of ancient wisdom, structures built by unknown hands echoing across myths and enigmatic ruins. Although many of these claims turned out to be dismissed or reinterpreted, the idea of Earth as a place of far older, forgotten civilizations has never disappeared. In fact, with every new discovery, the possibility feels closer rather than farther away. Today we know Earth is more than just a stage for a recent human drama. It is a world with mountains that have been uplifted and eroded countless times, canyons carved by ancient rivers that dwarf any modern flow, and polar caps that expand and shrink over vast geological epochs. Its surface is alive now with human activity, but it carries scars of an unimaginably active past. Volcanoes, floods, and shifting climates have all left their mark, and that is what makes it so fascinating. Unlike our tidy timelines, which are often shrouded in the relatively thin atmosphere of recorded history, Earth shows us its deep past openly, as if inviting us to study its true history. We can see the layers of rock that suggest a planet that once changed over time, just like the rise and fall of societies. What draws us to Earth's deep past is not only curiosity about its present inhabitants, but also a haunting question about its origins. Was it always a place of slow, gradual progress? Or did it once hold not just early hominids, but sophisticated cultures, advanced peoples, or even civilizations that we have long forgotten? This is why our own planet fascinates us more deeply than any other world. It is not only a globe of familiar continents, it is a mirror of possibility, a place where our imagination meets the limits of conventional science. It asks us to consider whether our modern age is unique, or whether civilization is a story that has already been told on this very world, perhaps many times over. And this is where we turn to the next part of the story, the question that begins to shift from comfortable assumption to profound inquiry. What if humanity's story is not a linear ascent, but a cyclical journey? When we look at humanity today, it seems to be at its peak of technological achievement, a singular moment in history. The idea of constant, uninterrupted progress has become an embedded truth, a dogma of our modern worldview. But what makes Earth's deep past compelling is the evidence that it was not always this way, or that our understanding is incomplete. Scientists and scholars now believe that billions of years ago, Earth may have looked far more alien, a world where geological forces churned and life itself was just beginning its long, uncertain path. The story begins with what we know about Earth's ancient deep past. Its surface is carved with valleys, deltas, and basins that closely resemble the shapes water creates today, but on scales that defy our recent human experience. These are not random cracks or accidents of geology. They are patterns of flowing rivers, winding streams, and lakes that once collected at low points, shaped by forces far beyond our contemporary understanding. Some regions even show signs of ancient shorelines, suggesting that entire oceans once spread across land masses now buried or transformed. For the sheer depth of time to have been possible, Earth must have been a dynamic planet, with an atmosphere and climates capable of supporting complex life and potentially complex societies for millions upon millions of years. Conventional science suggests that Earth has always had a protective magnetic field, similar to today's, shielding the planet from solar radiation and allowing it to hold onto a dense atmosphere. Without such a shield, however, the atmosphere would have been slowly stripped away by the solar wind, leaving behind a barren world. Yet the geological record speaks of immense stability for long stretches, interspersed with moments of profound, rapid change. The visible surface is a mere geological memory of a world that has seen countless transformations. This idea changes how we see Earth. It is no longer just a backdrop for a few thousand years of human history. It is a place that may have had climates, weather, and landscapes that were far closer to our own in ancient times, perhaps even more hospitable than we once imagined. If oceans once spread and land masses shifted, if environments remained stable for vast stretches of time, then conditions could have supported more than simple hunter-gatherer bands. They could have supported the rise and fall of civilizations. And this is where the question becomes even more intriguing. If Earth was once stable enough for such long durations, then the possibility of advanced civilizations existing and fading is not just a distant dream. It becomes almost expected. After all, life on Earth adapted and evolved through countless forms, from the simplest cells to the intricate ecosystems of today. If these same ingredients existed over vast spans of time, liquid water, a stable atmosphere, and energy from the sun, then why not advanced societies as well? The real mystery is not whether Earth could have supported them, but whether it actually did, and how far those societies may have gone. And this leads us directly into the next question, one that builds on the traces of ancient rivers and hidden valleys. What evidence do we have that Earth's history is far deeper and more complex than the conventional timeline allows? The strongest clue that Earth's past is veiled comes from the sheer scale of geological time. When we consider the span of our planet's existence, some 4.5 billion years, the recognized history of human civilization, a mere 6,000 to 10,000 years, shrinks to almost an imperceptible blink. Imagine the countless millennia that preceded Mesopotamia. What happened in those vast, silent expanses of time? Dry channels twist through ancient craters, valleys branch like tree roots across forgotten plains, and layered rocks stack up on each other, showing the rise and fall of ancient water levels and seismic shifts. These features are not random. They match patterns we know from geological processes, but they also highlight how easily the traces of any society, no matter how advanced, could be buried, erased, or utterly transformed by the relentless forces of our living planet. Take, for instance, the vast sedimentary basins across our continents. Colossal systems so deep they stretch for miles beneath the surface. Within their walls are signs of past floods, where water may have once rushed through, carving the landscape in ways that would obliterate any surface structures. Elsewhere, in places like deep ocean floors or beneath immense ice sheets, scientists have identified what appears to be a preserved record of geological upheaval, complete with events that could have reshaped entire continents and swept away all evidence of human habitation.
The fact that we only actively search for evidence within the last few thousand years is no accident. It is one of the most promising ways to manage the immense challenge of archaeology, but it also means we are purposefully ignoring the vast majority of Earth's habitable history. But beyond the geological record, there are hints of something even larger at play: the concept of cyclical history. Satellite images and ancient texts reveal what look like ancient patterns of catastrophe and renewal. These sweeping narratives outline eras that could once have been filled with flourishing cultures, covering millions of square miles, only to be wiped clean by some planetary event. If true, this would mean that Earth was not just a stage for a single linear progression of civilization, but a world with repeated cycles of rise, decline, and rebirth. A planet that has seen perhaps not one, but many grand human stories. The evidence for these cycles is still debated. Some scientists argue that the supposed patterns are simply natural variations. But as more data is gathered, and as we look deeper into ice cores, sediment layers, and even under the oceans, the case grows stronger. Minerals found deep underground and geological strata themselves suggest long interactions with powerful transformative forces. Even more compelling, some layers show signs of rapid, cataclysmic shifts that would have created conditions hostile to any established society, yet also, after their passing, ripe for new beginnings. If Earth once held rivers, lakes, and even oceans shaped by these vast cycles, then it was a planet with both stability and volatility. It was not just touched by gradual change, but shaped by immense, sudden events over long stretches of time. And with time, water, and energy, the conditions for not just life, but for complex societal evolution are not only possible, they are likely. This possibility raises another important question, one that shifts the focus from the ground beneath our feet to the very framework of our historical understanding. If Earth has such a deep, tumultuous past, then what happened to the knowledge and evidence that would have made such conditions and civilizations visible to us today? If Earth once saw the rise and fall of civilizations, it must have also seen the forces that erased them from our memory. Liquid water cannot last on the surface without pressure and heat, but a human society cannot last without the infrastructure that supports it. And today, our records stretch back only a fraction of Earth's true habitable history. The atmosphere now, though stable, has witnessed countless global changes. This thin blanket of historical record cannot hold the heat of all past events, leaving the deep past exposed to freezing nights of forgetfulness, sudden storms of cataclysm, and constant erosion by the passage of millennia. In such conditions, even the most enduring structures boil away or freeze into unrecognizability. Life, at least as we know it, could not last long on a surface constantly being reshaped. So what happened to the civilizations Earth once had? The leading idea is that Earth, while protective, is also a relentless eraser. Long ago, as today, geological processes were at work. Plate tectonics, volcanic eruptions, and massive floods would have reshaped continents, swallowed coastlines, and buried any existing cities under miles of sediment. That continuous churn would have deflected the clear narrative of human progress, the stream of charged particles flowing out from our past. But at some point, perhaps many times over billions of years, the memory of these cultures collapsed. Without protection, the relentless forces of nature began stripping away the upper layers of history, atom by atom, until only a thin veil remained. Evidence for this comes from data collected by ice cores, sediments, and geological surveys, which had measured how vast transformations continue to escape into our awareness today, slowly but steadily. Over time, this process could have transformed Earth from a planet with a multi-layered past into the linear, simplified one we see now. It was not a sudden change in every instance, but a slow decline into oblivion for most historical traces. The rivers dried, the lakes disappeared, and the oceans, if they existed, retreated into ice, or were lost to the deep earth. What remains visible on the surface is the geological memory of a world that may have once been alive with far more than just natural processes. This idea changes how we see Earth. It is no longer just a barren backdrop for human endeavor. It is a place that may have had climates, weather, and landscapes that supported not just one, but many chapters of human story, far closer to advanced civilizations than we once imagined. If rivers once flowed and cities once filled valleys, then the environment could have supported more than simple hunter-gatherer chemistry. It could have supported complex societies. And this is where the question becomes even more profound. If Earth was once a cradle for civilizations that are now lost, then the possibility of discovering their remains is not just a distant dream, it becomes an archaeological imperative. After all, recorded history began in similar conditions, with liquid water, an atmosphere, and energy from the sun. If these same ingredients existed on Earth's deep past, then why not there as well? The real mystery is not whether Earth could have supported these ancient civilizations, but whether it actually did and how far those civilizations may have gone. This leads us directly into the next question, one that builds on the traces of lost rivers and buried valleys. What evidence do we have that Earth once held not just fleeting human presence, but entire forgotten epochs of civilization? The strongest clue that Earth's history is far older and more intricate than commonly believed comes from the anomalies left on its surface and within its crust. When archaeologists and geologists send back images and data, we sometimes see images that look strangely familiar, yet profoundly out of place. Dry channels twist through forgotten craters, valleys branch like tree roots across immense, weathered plains, and layered rocks stack up on one another, showing the rise and fall of ancient water levels. These features are not random. They match patterns we know from rivers, deltas, and shorelines here on Earth, but sometimes they appear to be far older than our established historical timeline suggests. Take the region of our own planet known as the Sunda Shelf, a vast submerged landmass in Southeast Asia. Within its vast plains are signs of past rivers and ancient coastlines, where entire land bridges once connected continents. Water may have once rushed through, carving the landscape in ways that resemble floodplains on dry land today. Elsewhere, in places like the vast plains of Siberia, or the ancient riverbeds of the Sahara, scientists have identified what appears to be preserved evidence of large-scale hydrological activity, complete with channels that once carried flowing water into standing lakes or even oceans, all occurring in periods long before agriculture was thought possible. The fact that some of these features are only now being mapped from space is no accident. It is one of the most promising ways to search for signs of past civilizations, precisely because rivers and lakes create the right conditions for settlement and societal development. But beyond rivers and lakes, there are hints of something even larger: ancient, submerged land masses. In the northern lowlands of what is now the North Sea, or off the coasts of India, satellite images and sonar reveal what look like ancient coastlines. These sweeping curves outlined areas that could once have been filled with land, covering millions of square miles, only to be wiped clean by some planetary event. If true, this would mean that Earth was not just a planet with occasional early settlements. It was a world with vast, now submerged land masses that could have harbored civilizations as extensive as any we know today. The evidence for these lost continents and submerged cities is still debated. Some scientists argue that the supposed coastlines may be caused by other geological processes. But as more data is gathered, the evidence grows stronger. Minerals found deep in ocean cores, such as clays and salts, suggest long interactions with liquid water and surface environments. Even more compelling, some layers show signs of repeated wetting and drying cycles that would have created habitats ideal for early human habitation, or for something far more complex.
If Earth once had rivers, lakes, and even continents now lost to the sea, then it was a planet with long periods of stability and immense opportunity for development. It was not just touched by water briefly, but shaped by it over long stretches of time. And with time, water, and energy, the conditions for advanced life and for complex societies are not only possible, they are highly likely. This possibility raises another important question, one that shifts the focus from the ground beneath our feet to the very nature of human progress. If Earth had all this potential, then what forces made such conditions disappear, erasing the memory of these ancient cultures from our collective consciousness? It is a question that challenges the very foundations of our historical understanding. But if advanced societies once spanned the globe, then where are their lasting signatures? Where are the monumental cities, the intricate road networks, the vast structures that should, by all logic, testify to a long and thriving past? The answer, perhaps, lies not in simple disappearance, but in profound destruction and relentless erasure. Earth, far from being a stable cradle of continuous progress, has a volatile history, punctuated by cataclysmic events powerful enough to shatter the memory of entire epochs. It is a story told in the planet's very geology, written in scars and buried layers that hint at chapters we have long forgotten. Consider the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a radical idea that challenges our understanding of how our world changed at the dawn of human civilization. Around 12,800 years ago, as the last ice age was drawing to a close, Earth plunged back into a sudden, intense cold snap. This period, known as the Younger Dryas, lasted for over 1,000 years, halting the warming trend and reshaping landscapes across the northern hemisphere. Mainstream science attributes this abrupt climate reversal to the collapse of ice sheets, which released massive volumes of fresh water into the North Atlantic, disrupting ocean currents. But a growing body of evidence suggests something far more dramatic, something apocalyptic may have triggered this devastating shift, a cosmic impact. Imagine fragments of a disintegrating comet or a swarm of asteroids streaking through Earth's atmosphere, impacting across North America and potentially other continents. Such an event would not have been a single localized blast, but a series of explosions, unleashing energies equivalent to thousands of nuclear weapons. The immediate aftermath would have been unimaginable. Vast wildfires would have ignited across forests and grasslands, burning for weeks or months, filling the sky with soot and ash. A sudden, prolonged darkness would have descended, blocking sunlight and triggering an instant global cooling. This would not be a gradual climate change, but a violent, instantaneous alteration of the planetary system, plunging the world into a new ice age within years, not centuries. The destructive power of such a rapid climate shift is difficult to comprehend from our comfortable vantage point. Ecosystems would have collapsed. Animals accustomed to a warming world would have faced sudden, brutal cold leading to mass extinctions. Human populations, whether tribal or more organized, would have been utterly devastated. Those who survived the immediate blasts and fires would then contend with plummeting temperatures, frozen seas, and skies choked with dust and smoke, making agriculture impossible and basic survival a daily battle. Entire regions could have become uninhabitable overnight, forcing migrations or leading to the slow, agonizing death of isolated communities. For any civilizations flourishing at that time, such a planetary upheaval would have been an extinction-level event, erasing not just lives, but knowledge, infrastructure, and collective memory. The geological signatures of such ancient floods and mega tsunamis are etched into the landscape if one knows where to look. When massive ice sheets melt rapidly, or when extraterrestrial impacts trigger seismic upheavals, the results are cataclysmic floods on a scale unseen in recorded history. Consider the vast, dry coulees and scablands of the Pacific Northwest and North America, formations that defy gradual erosion. These were carved not by slow rivers, but by monstrous meltwater floods from the Missoula Glacial Lake, repeatedly bursting its ice dams with volumes of water hundreds of times greater than the Amazon River. These were mega tsunamis of fresh water, tearing across continents at incredible speeds, scouring bedrock, moving colossal boulders, and carving landscapes in hours that would normally take millennia. These flood events, whether from glacial outbursts or impact-induced seismic upheavals, would have obliterated anything in their path. Imagine coastal cities, perhaps advanced for their time, being struck by waves hundreds of feet high, sweeping inland for scores of miles. The force of such water would not only demolish buildings, but strip away soil, rearrange entire landforms, and deposit layers of sediment so vast and so chaotic that any evidence of human habitation would be utterly buried, crushed, or pulverized. The marks left by these events are not subtle. They are geological scars of immense power. Colossal ripple marks on ancient lake beds, transported erratic boulders, and layers of unsorted sediments that speak of rapid, violent deposition rather than slow accumulation. And this leads us to understand how natural forces don't just destroy, but actively bury and obliterate evidence, making archaeological discovery almost impossible. When a catastrophic event occurs, it often leaves behind a signature layer. For the Younger Dryas, this layer, known as the Younger Dryas boundary, is found across North America and into Europe. It contains compelling evidence of an impact, high concentrations of platinum and iridium, elements rare on Earth's surface but common in asteroids, microscopic diamonds formed under extreme pressure, magnetic microspherules, and vast quantities of charcoal and soot, indicative of widespread fires. These materials are not just scattered, they are often found within distinct sediment layers, sealing away the world that existed before. But the process of erasure goes far beyond this. Earth is a dynamic planet. Tectonic activity can subsume land masses, burying them under continental plates or submerging them beneath the oceans. Volcanic eruptions, especially supervolcanoes, can entomb entire regions under hundreds of feet of ash and lava, freezing landscapes in time, but also making them inaccessible. Sedimentation, though often slow, can be incredibly rampant during cataclysms. Massive floods and tsunamis deposit thick, chaotic layers of mud, sand, and rock, covering everything beneath them. Over thousands of years, these layers compact, turning to stone, pushing ancient surfaces deeper and deeper into the Earth's crust. What was once a standing structure becomes a deep-buried anomaly with no distinction from natural geology without precise and intrusive investigation. This dynamic nature of our planet means that our perception of a lost chapter in Earth's geological record is not merely metaphorical, it is a profound reality. Each major cataclysm, whether an impact, a supervolcanic eruption, or a series of megafloods, acts like a hard reset, not just on life and climate, but on the very land itself. It wipes the slate clean, covering over previous epochs with new, often violent deposits. The geological record is not a continuous, perfectly preserved library, it is a heavily edited manuscript, with entire sections ripped out, pages stuck together or written over with new information. For civilizations that predated these events, their footprint would be erased, their structures buried, their very existence rendered invisible by the overwhelming forces of planetary change. The ocean floors, for example, hold immense potential for forgotten histories. Sea levels have fluctuated dramatically over Earth's deep past, sometimes hundreds of feet lower than today. Vast coastal plains that are now submerged once offered fertile ground for early settlements. A sudden rise in sea level, perhaps due to rapid glacial melt, would have drowned these regions, sealing them under kilometers of water, subject to ocean currents and further sedimentation. Structures made of less durable materials would dissolve. Even stone would be eroded and eventually covered, becoming part of the abyssal plain. Our current methods of archaeological exploration are largely limited to land, to accessible surface finds. We are effectively searching only a small, exposed fraction of Earth's true historical archive, while vast libraries of potential evidence lie buried deep beneath our feet or beneath the crushing weight of the world's oceans.
Yet, despite this profound erasure, science has developed methods to glimpse these lost chapters. We examine ice core data, for instance, retrieved from Greenland and Antarctica.
These cores are like frozen timelines, preserving layers of atmospheric gases, dust, and aerosols year by year, sometimes for hundreds of thousands of years. Within these ancient ice layers, scientists have found tantalizing clues: sudden spikes in platinum and soot concentrations coinciding with the younger Dryas, suggesting an extraterrestrial impact and widespread wildfires. These aren't direct images of cities, but they are undeniable chemical fingerprints of a global catastrophe that aligns precisely with the timeline of missing civilizations. Similarly, sediment layers extracted from deep ocean beds, ancient lake floors, and even peat bogs serve as another invaluable archive. Geologists and paleoclimatologists analyze these strata, looking for anomalies. They might find layers of microscopic spherules, glassy fragments formed from intense heat, or nanodiamonds, all indicative of a massive, high-energy impact event. Changes in pollen counts in specific layers can signal abrupt shifts in vegetation, while fossilized algal blooms or shifts in marine life point to rapid oceanographic alterations. The presence of these unique markers, often found in a distinct thin layer, paints a picture of a world violently disrupted. These are the faint, shattered memories of Earth, preserved in the very material that also served to obliterate the older world. These geological records tell us that the Earth's past is far from linear. It is a story of repeated cycles of creation and destruction, of stability shattered by chaos, and of life adapting to immense sudden pressures. What we perceive as the dawn of civilization may in fact be merely a rediscovery, a rebuilding effort by survivors of an older, grander world that was almost entirely wiped from the planetary memory. The forces that shaped our present landscape are also the forces that buried our past, leaving us with a fragmented narrative and a profound mystery. To truly understand our origins, we must look beyond the familiar archaeological digs and delve into the Earth's own deep, often violent geological chronicle. For within these buried layers, these signatures of ancient cataclysms, lies the chilling possibility that much of human history, and indeed civilization itself, is far older and far more complex than we have ever been told. And as we begin to grasp the sheer destructive power of these natural forces, the anomalies we find in the surviving archaeological record become not mere curiosities, but whispers from a buried past, testament to a story refusing to be completely erased. The Earth's memory, as we have seen, is a tapestry frayed by cataclysm and eroded by the passage of ages. Yet, even as vast geological forces bury and obliterate entire chapters of the past, some fragments refuse to be silenced. They are the stones that whisper, the anomalies that challenge our neat timelines and polite assumptions about human ascent. These are not mere curiosities, they are profound disruptions to the story we have been told, suggesting that the capabilities of ancient peoples, and indeed the very sequence of human development, may be far more complex than we currently grasp. Consider Göbekli Tepe, a site unearthed in southeastern Turkey, whose very existence rewrites the genesis of civilization. For generations, the accepted narrative held that humanity first settled, cultivated crops, and then, and only then, began to build monumental structures and form complex societies. Agriculture was the engine, leading to surplus, specialization, and eventually the city. But Göbekli Tepe overturns this foundational belief entirely. Discovered in the 1990s, this sprawling hilltop sanctuary dates back to at least 9600 BCE, placing it firmly in the pre-pottery Neolithic A period. This makes it older than the invention of pottery, older than settled agriculture, and a staggering 7,000 years before the pyramids of Egypt. What makes Göbekli Tepe so revolutionary is not merely its age, but its astounding sophistication. Across 20 acres, massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, are arranged in circular enclosures. These megaliths are intricately carved with precise reliefs of animals, boars, foxes, lions, birds, and snakes, depicted with an artistry that speaks of a developed aesthetic and symbolic language. The sheer effort required to quarry, transport, and erect these stones without metal tools or domesticated animals is immense. It suggests a level of social organization, planning, and collective labor previously thought impossible for hunter-gatherer societies. How could people living a nomadic lifestyle before the stability of farming construct something of this magnitude? The site features multiple layers, indicating that successive generations meticulously buried older enclosures and built new ones on top, preserving them like time capsules. This was not a temporary camp, but a persistent, monumental undertaking, a sacred space drawing people from across vast distances. Göbekli Tepe therefore forces a radical reevaluation. Did ritual and communal belief precede agriculture rather than follow it? Did the need to build and worship drive people to settle and then to cultivate the land to support such efforts? Its silence echoes a profound question. If humanity built this staggering complex at the dawn of the Neolithic, what other achievements lie hidden beneath the dust of prehistory? Beyond Göbekli Tepe, the world is dotted with other megalithic marvels that defy easy explanation, structures that push the limits of what we imagined ancient humans could achieve. These are not merely large, they exhibit a precision in stonework that challenges our understanding of the tools and engineering available thousands of years ago. They are the remnants of advanced construction, often using materials that should have been unmanageable, cut with a finesse that seems to transcend their supposed technological era. Take Pumapunku, a ceremonial complex within the larger Tiwanaku site in the Bolivian Andes. Situated at nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, it stands as a testament to baffling craftsmanship. The stones here are not simply rough-hewn blocks. They are meticulously cut and shaped, some featuring intricate H-blocks, I-sections, and complex interlocking joints that fit together with uncanny precision, like pieces of a colossal three-dimensional puzzle. The largest of these blocks, made of red sandstone, weighs an estimated 130 tons, while the smaller gray andesite blocks, known for their extreme hardness, are cut with such exactitude that a razor blade cannot be slipped between them. The surfaces are mirror smooth, adorned with decorative elements that appear to have been drilled, polished, and incised with tools far beyond the known capabilities of the ancient Tiwanaku people who are credited with its construction around 500 to 1000 CE. Conventional archaeology struggles to explain how these massive stones, some quarried miles away, were transported to the site and then shaped with such geometric perfection without the use of iron tools or the wheel. The precision of the angles, the uniformity of the cuts, and the sheer scale of the undertaking suggest an advanced understanding of geometry, material science, and engineering that seems utterly out of place in their designated historical context. Further west, in the Lebanese Bekaa Valley, lies Baalbek, another site that presents an almost insurmountable engineering enigma. Here, within the foundations of the Roman Temple of Jupiter, rest three colossal stones, known as the Trilogen. Each block of limestone weighs approximately 800 tons, measuring over 60 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet thick. These are among the largest cut stones on Earth, perfectly shaped and integrated into the wall structure. Nearby, in the quarry, lies an even larger stone, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, or Hajar al-Hibla, estimated at over 1,000 tons, still partially attached to the bedrock. The questions surrounding Baalbek are immense.
How are these monstrous blocks quarried and then moved across uneven terrain? How are they lifted into position with such flawless alignment?
Conventional explanations invoke ramps, rollers, and sheer manpower. But the logistics for stones of this size and weight, particularly given the specific angles and heights they occupy, stretch credibility to its breaking point. The precision, the scale, and the materials involved point to a technology and a level of coordinated effort that are difficult to reconcile with the established timeline of human development. These are not rough structures. They are monuments of astonishing engineering, built by hands and minds we struggle to identify.
The consistent theme across these sites, from Göbekli Tepe's intricate carvings to Pumapunku's impossible joints and Baalbek's gargantuan monoliths, is a level of precision stonework that defies the conventional archaeological record. These are not isolated aberrations. They collectively hint at a sophisticated mastery of quarrying, cutting, and construction techniques that predate the established inventions of iron tools, advanced mathematics, or widespread use of complex machinery. The cuts are often clean, flat, and perfectly right-angled, even in the hardest stones, and the surfaces are frequently polished to an extent that suggests a deliberate aesthetic or functional purpose beyond mere utility. The fitting of enormous blocks, often without mortar, is so exact that it has resisted millennia of seismic activity. This precision challenges the notion of gradual linear progress in human technology. It raises the disquieting possibility that periods of advanced capability existed and were subsequently lost, perhaps through cataclysm, perhaps through a decline we have yet to understand. These structures stand as silent witnesses, challenging us to reevaluate what ancient humans truly knew and what they were truly capable of building. But not all the whispers of ancient capabilities are found on dry land. The Earth's waters, rising and falling with millennia of climatic shifts, hold their own secrets. Vast stretches of coastline, once teeming with life and human activity, now lie submerged beneath the waves, guarding the ruins of forgotten settlements. These underwater cities and structures provide tantalizing glimpses into a past that has been literally drowned by time, challenging our understanding of sea levels, human habitation, and global geography in prehistory. Perhaps the most compelling example of these submerged anomalies is the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. First discovered in 1986, this massive underwater rock formation has sparked intense debate. Its features include flat steps, terraces, straight walls, right angles, and even what appear to be carved passageways and a perfect circular depression. Measuring approximately 50 meters long, 20 meters wide, and 25 meters high, the structure bears a striking resemblance to a submerged pyramid or a monumental stepped platform. Geologists and archaeologists remain divided. Some argue that these are natural formations, shaped by erosion along natural fault lines, pointing to similar geological formations in the region. Yet others contend that the geometric regularity, the sharp, deliberate angles, and the seeming consistency of design are simply too perfect to be entirely natural. If it is artificial, the Yonaguni Monument would have been submerged by rising sea levels around 8,000 to 10,000 BCE, placing its construction firmly within the last ice age, an era when humans were thought to be simple hunter-gatherers. The implications are profound. A sophisticated civilization capable of monumental construction existing in a period long before our accepted timelines for such achievements. The deep sea, in its vastness, likely holds countless other such mysteries, lost to the depths and awaiting discovery. Adding another layer to this perplexing historical puzzle are artifacts found in impossible geological contexts, often referred to as out-of-place artifacts, or uaparts. These are objects that, based on the strata in which they are discovered, appeared to predate by millions of years the period when such items, or the technology to create them, should have existed. While many such claims are ultimately debunked as natural formations, misidentifications, or hoaxes, a persistent few continue to baffle conventional explanation, acting as persistent irritants in the established historical narrative. Consider, for example, the intricate metallic spheres found in pyrophilic mines in South Africa, some dating back as far as 2.8 billion years. These small, grooved spheres, often with two parallel lines running around their circumference, have been described by miners for decades. While some argue they are natural concretions, their consistent shape and markings pose a question. How could natural processes produce such apparent uniformity and design at such immense geological ages? Or the famous Coso artifact, a spark plug encased in a geode found in California in 1961, which was estimated to be 500,000 years old. Though later analysis suggested a more recent origin for the geode formation, the initial discovery sparked intense debate about anachronistic technology. These cases, and many others, are often dismissed by mainstream science due to lack of rigorous, repeatable verification or clear provenance. But their continued appearance in the historical fringes highlights a fundamental tension. What happens when observed phenomena do not fit our established frameworks? These objects, whether genuine anomalies or simply misunderstood geology, serve as reminders that the Earth's layers may hold secrets far stranger than our current scientific models allow. They compel us to question whether our understanding of human technological evolution is complete, or if there have been forgotten epochs where tools and understanding existed that we cannot yet account for. These collective anomalies, from the astonishing complexity of Göbekli Tepe to the precise engineering of Pumapunku and Baalbek, the submerged mystery of Yonaguni, and the perplexing Uaparts, demand a fundamental reevaluation of human capabilities in prehistory. The conventional model of human history paints a picture of gradual linear progress, from primitive stone tools to agriculture, then to cities and complex metallurgy. This model suggests a slow, painstaking climb out of ignorance and savagery. But the evidence we have explored challenges this comfortable narrative. How could ancient peoples, supposedly without advanced tools or a deep understanding of engineering, achieve feats that even modern engineers struggle to replicate today? It forces us to ask, were these achievements the product of an unknown, forgotten technology, or a lost understanding of natural forces that we no longer possess? Perhaps it was a combination of both. The precision of the stonework, the ability to move colossal weights, and the apparent astronomical alignments often embedded in these ancient structures all point to a level of sophistication that our current models of pre-civilized societies simply cannot accommodate. This reevaluation is not about dismissing the ingenuity of known ancient cultures, but about acknowledging that there may have been others, far older, whose legacy is preserved only in these enigmatic stone whispers. They challenge us to consider a non-linear history, one where periods of advancement might have been followed by collapses, where knowledge was gained, lost, and perhaps rediscovered across vast stretches of time. These sites compel us to look beyond the immediate archaeological horizon, to question the accepted narrative, and to open our minds to the profound possibility that humanity's story is much older and far more astonishing than we are currently told. The stones themselves, in their silent endurance, compel us to listen. Beyond the silent testament of stone, beyond the submerged whispers of forgotten coastlines, there exists another kind of evidence. It is a memory etched not in granite, but in the collective human psyche, a story told in the echoes of myth, the precision of ancient calendars, and the surprisingly sophisticated skills of early astronomy. If our history is indeed far older and more complex than we are told, then its traces should appear not just in physical ruins, but in the very fabric of human culture and shared wisdom. One of the most striking anomalies in this deeper historical inquiry is the pervasive nature of global flood myths. Across continents, separated by vast oceans and entirely different cultural trajectories, indigenous peoples in ancient civilizations recount strikingly similar narratives of a great deluge. From the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical account of Noah, from the Hindu Puranas to the flood stories of Native American tribes, the theme is remarkably consistent. A world plunged into chaos by water, a divine or cosmic punishment, a chosen few survivors, and the subsequent re-establishment of life. These are not merely local anecdotes of overflowing rivers. These are often tales of a planetary reset, of nearly total destruction and rebirth, suggesting a shared traumatic memory of a global cataclysm that preceded the dawn of recorded history.
Why would so many disparate cultures with no apparent contact develop such a coherent narrative? Mainstream archaeology often attributes these similarities to independent cultural development or to common human anxieties about nature's power. Yet the sheer uniformity of the deluge theme, coupled with the geological evidence of rapid sea level changes and megatsunamis discussed earlier, compels us to consider a different explanation, that these myths are not simply allegories, but fragmented historical records passed down through countless generations, preserving the memory of a real, planet-altering event. They are the stories of humanity's true common ancestors, a world united by suffering, attempting to convey a truth too vast and terrible to be fully comprehended. Building on these shared ancestral memories of destruction, we find another puzzling thread: the extraordinary astronomical knowledge possessed by cultures deemed primitive by conventional history. Consider the Maya, whose intricate calendrical systems and observations of celestial mechanics rivaled and in some respects surpassed those of contemporary European civilizations. They tracked planetary cycles with breathtaking accuracy, predicted eclipses, and understood the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that takes approximately 26,000 years to complete one full cycle. Such knowledge demands not just careful observation, but observation sustained over millennia, suggesting a cumulative wisdom that far exceeds the accepted timeline for their emergence as a complex society. Similarly, the ancient Egyptians displayed an understanding of celestial alignments embedded in the very architecture of their temples and pyramids. Their sacred architecture often points to specific stars or cardinal directions with uncanny precision, indicating a sophisticated grasp of astrophysics that seems at odds with their supposed technological capabilities. How did a society, conventionally seen as just emerging from a Stone Age, acquire such deep, long-term astronomical data? This wasn't simply stargazing, it was applied cosmology, integrated into their spiritual beliefs and their understanding of time itself. These are not isolated instances. From the megalithic structures of Europe, like Stonehenge, acting as sophisticated celestial observatories, to the complex astronomical alignments found in ancient Chinese and Indian texts, a pattern emerges. It suggests a global tradition of skywatching, not just for practical purposes of agriculture or navigation, but for understanding deep cosmic cycles. This level of sustained, precise observation implies a continuity of knowledge over vast stretches of time, periods that conventional history struggles to account for. It points to a legacy inherited from an earlier, more advanced epoch, a time when humanity perhaps held a more holistic view of its place in the cosmos. Following this astronomical thread, we encounter the advanced calendrical systems that punctuate ancient cultures. The Maya calendar, famous for its long count, reaches back millions of years into the past, calculating cycles that dwarf the entirety of human civilization as we understand it. Why would a culture obsessed with agricultural cycles and short-term survival create a calendar system that stretches far beyond their own perceived history, referencing cosmic epochs and mythological creations millennia before their recorded existence? It implies that the Maya were not simply inventing these timelines, but inheriting them, preserving a record of an earlier understanding of cosmic time. The Egyptian calendar, too, with its precise division of the year and its connection to the heliacal rising of Sirius, hints at an observation period extending far back into antiquity. Even the concept of a great year, or Platonic year, related to the precession of the equinoxes and found in various ancient traditions, suggests an awareness of geological and astronomical cycles that demands a much older intellectual tradition.
These calendars are not mere counting systems, they are cosmic maps, embedded with a memory of deep time, a temporal framework that seems to transcend the immediate human experience, hinting at an intellectual legacy from a forgotten past. This brings us to the tantalizing concept of lost sciences or forgotten technologies. If ancient peoples possessed such advanced astronomical and calendrical understanding, often encoded in monumental architecture that still defies modern replication, as we explored in the previous act, then what other knowledge might have been lost? The precision of the stonework at sites like Pumapunku or Baalbek, the apparent ability to manipulate colossal blocks with effortless ease, points not just to brute force, but to a profound grasp of physics, engineering, and material science that we struggle to reconcile with simple Bronze Age tools. Could these feats be the remnants of lost sciences? Technologies that were highly specialized, perhaps based on principles we no longer understand or have rediscovered through different paths? Imagine a civilization that understood acoustics to move stone, or harnessed forms of energy not reliant on combustion, or possessed precise methods for shaping materials through sound or vibration. These are not necessarily futuristic anti-gravity devices, but rather advanced applications of natural laws that might have been unique to a specific cultural trajectory, honed over centuries, only to be largely erased by a catastrophic event. What remains are the physical artifacts, the silent monuments that whisper of a knowledge system that simply vanished from our collective memory. Ancient texts themselves offer tantalizing hints of a much older timeline, challenging the conventional narrative of human progress. Texts like Plato's account of Atlantis, describing a powerful technologically advanced civilization that existed thousands of years before the Greek classical period and was swallowed by the sea, have long been dismissed as mere allegory. Yet when viewed through the lens of global flood myths and geological evidence of ancient cataclysms, such stories gain a new resonance. They are not just fables, but potential oral histories, codified in later written traditions, recounting a golden age that was abruptly curtailed. Hindu texts, such as the Puranas and the Mahabharata, speak of vast cycles of time, yugas, spanning hundreds of thousands, even millions of years within which civilizations rise and fall. They describe technologies and aerial vehicles that sound eerily modern, alongside narratives of epic wars and planetary upheavals. While often dismissed as mythology, the consistent and detailed nature of these accounts, particularly their emphasis on cosmic cycles and deep time, aligns remarkably with the evidence we are uncovering from geology and archaeology. It suggests a textual tradition that preserves fragments of a much grander historical epoch, far beyond the narrow window we currently accept. The transmission of knowledge across generations and cataclysms becomes a central theme in this alternative view of history. If advanced civilizations existed and then fell, their legacy would not disappear entirely. It would survive, albeit in fragmented forms. How does knowledge endure when entire cities are buried and entire populations are decimated? It endures through those who remember, through oral traditions passed down from elder to initiate, from shaman to apprentice, eventually finding their way into the myths, rituals, and sacred texts of later societies. This is not a linear transfer, but a jagged, interrupted one. A partial understanding, perhaps, or a symbolic representation of something once fully grasped. The sophisticated astronomical data found in ancient cultures, the precise calendrical calculations, the uncanny engineering skills, could be echoes of a much more comprehensive lost science. Surviving masters or scattered groups of refugees carrying fragments of their knowledge might have seeded nascent societies with remnants of their advanced understanding, which then became integrated into new cultural contexts. These transmitted fragments could be why, for example, the Maya understood the precession of the equinoxes without the apparent tools to measure it over such vast periods, or why the Egyptians built with such precision thousands of years ago using methods that still elude us. It suggests that these cultures were not simply inventing these complexities from scratch, but rather inheriting, perhaps imperfectly, a body of knowledge from a vastly older, more technologically proficient ancestral civilization.
This intergenerational and intercataclysmic transmission of wisdom fundamentally reshapes our understanding of human intellectual history. It posits that humanity's journey has been one not of continuous upward progress from simple beginnings, but of a cyclical rise and fall, punctuated by resets and rediscoveries. The myths, the sky charts, the profound calendars are not just quaint curiosities. They are breadcrumbs laid by survivors and inheritors, guiding us back to a time when humanity knew more, built more, and understood its place in the cosmos with a wisdom we are only now beginning to reclaim. This is the enduring legacy of forgotten worlds, preserved in the very stories we tell and the stars we gaze upon. The whispers from ancient stones and the echo of forgotten wisdom hint at a past far grander than our textbooks typically suggest. But if such sophisticated cultures once existed, if they commanded knowledge and built structures that defy our modern explanations, where is the physical evidence of their vast presence? Why does history seem to reset itself, leaving us only with fragments and myths? The answer lies in Earth's own relentless mechanisms, processes of erasure and preservation so profound they can bury entire epochs, transforming vibrant landscapes into silent geological memory. Our planet is an active, dynamic canvas, constantly reshaping itself, concealing the narratives of what came before beneath layers of its own making. One of the most potent forces in this grand erasure is rapid sedimentation and geological burial. Imagine a river system swollen beyond recognition, carrying not just water, but untold tons of silt, sand, and rock. When these waters slow, perhaps in a vast inland sea or at the mouth of a colossal delta, they deposit their immense load. Over days, weeks, or even decades of sustained catastrophic flow, entire cities, once standing proud on fertile plains, could be submerged, then utterly entombed. The very ground they stood upon would become their shroud, burying structures whole, preserving them not as ruins on the surface, but as anomalies locked deep within newly formed rock strata. This process is not slow, subtle erosion. It is a rapid geological interment, capable of creating a time capsule for one age, while simultaneously erasing its existence from the surface world of the next. Landscapes that once teemed with life become fossilized plains, their human story pressed out of sight, held captive by the sheer weight of new geology. But it is not only land-based civilizations that vanish. Consider the immense power of massive sea level changes and their capacity for coastal obliteration. For much of humanity's supposed infancy, vast quantities of Earth's water were locked in colossal ice sheets. As these melted, often at accelerating rates, sea level surged, not in inches per century, but potentially in meters per decade or even faster. Ancient coastlines, home to the earliest and often most vibrant human settlements, would have been engulfed. A 100-meter rise in sea level doesn't just flood harbors, it reclaims entire land masses, submerging fertile valleys and sweeping away architectural achievements. The relentless churn of ocean currents, the constant battering of waves, and the deposit of marine sediments would then work their destructive magic. Stone structures, no matter how robust, would be pulverized, scattered, and eventually buried beneath the ocean floor, lost to the depths. What might have been bustling coastal cities, intricate port facilities, or even advanced maritime outposts would become indistinct mounds beneath the waves, their former glory ground into geological dust, awaiting rediscovery by tools we don't yet possess, or perhaps never will. Beyond water, the Earth's fiery heart also plays a role in this colossal act of erasure and preservation. Volcanic eruptions possess an unparalleled capacity to entomb societies. We know of Pompeii, a city frozen in a moment by ash, but imagine an eruption on a scale many magnitudes greater. Supervolcanoes, for instance, can eject cubic miles of material, burying entire regions under hundreds of feet of ash and pyroclastic flows. These events don't just destroy, they create an instantaneous geological layer,
an impermeable seal over whatever lies beneath. A sprawling network of settlements, a complex system of agriculture, or even a nascent industrial hub could be swallowed in a matter of hours or days, preserved in perfect, if terrifying detail, but rendered utterly inaccessible and invisible for millennia. The heat, the pressure, the sheer volume of material would ensure that only the most robust structures might survive, and even then, they would be buried so deeply that they would form a new, unrecognizable landscape. The Earth's geological memory, in this sense, is not a continuous scroll, but a series of distinct, often violent chapters, each sealing away the one before it. While catastrophic events provide the dramatic erasure, the slow, relentless hand of erosion performs a more subtle, yet equally effective, long-term effect on surface structures. Even without cataclysms, wind, water, and temperature fluctuations tirelessly work to dismantle everything exposed to the elements. Stone, though seeming eternal, is slowly worn down by abrasive sands, dissolved by acidic rain, or fractured by freezing and thawing cycles. Over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years, what were once monumental edifices become mere bumps in the landscape, indistinguishable from natural geological formations. The intricate carvings fade, the precise angles soften, and the carefully placed blocks scatter. Vegetation, too, plays its part, with roots breaking apart foundations and organic material slowly reclaiming the ground. This ongoing process means that any civilization existing beyond a relatively shallow time frame of human history would leave virtually no surface trace. Our common perception of ruins as standing structures is a modern bias informed by the relatively short span of known human history. For truly ancient societies, the surface of Earth has been scrubbed clean again and again. Given these formidable mechanisms of erasure, the challenge of locating deep-buried archaeological sites becomes almost overwhelming. Our current archaeological tools and methodologies are primarily designed for finding sites that are either visible on the surface or buried relatively shallowly, often within meters of the current ground level. Surface surveys rely on visible indicators, pottery shards, anomalies in vegetation, or slight topographical changes. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometers can probe a few tens of meters down, but the vast majority of Earth's geological history, and with it potentially vast stretches of human history, lies far beyond that reach. Imagine a city buried hundreds or thousands of meters deep beneath accumulated sediment, lava, or shifted coastlines. Finding such a site would be akin to locating a needle not just in a haystack, but in a mountain range, blindfolded. The sheer scale of the Earth, combined with the immense depth at which evidence could lie, transforms traditional archaeology into an almost impossible task. And this reveals why our current tools and methods may overlook vast evidence. Modern archaeology is, by necessity, a science of what is accessible. We excavate where we find clues, where erosion has exposed a glimpse of the past, or where geological activity has brought deeper layers closer to the surface. We rely on the visible, the historically documented, or the anomalies that jump out at us. This approach, while effective for the known timeline, fundamentally biases our understanding of deep history. It assumes that if something existed, some trace would eventually make its way to a detectable depth. But if entire civilizations were buried rapidly and deeply, they would exist in a realm inaccessible to shovels and most remote sensing. Without a clear target, without a map that hints at their presence, these deeply interred societies remain invisible, their existence speculative at best. We are like librarians searching only the top shelf, utterly unaware of the countless volumes lying in sub-basements sealed behind walls of rock and time. This profound limitation suggests that what we consider history is merely the most recent, most conveniently preserved chapter, while countless others may lie beneath our feet, waiting for a science, or perhaps an intuition, capable of reaching them. Our journey through Earth's deep past has unveiled a tapestry woven with threads of forgotten history,
threads often buried beneath the very mechanisms of erasure and preservation we have explored. Yet when we gather these disparate strands, the geological scars, the archaeological whispers, and the enduring myths, a profoundly different narrative begins to emerge, one that challenges the very foundations of our understanding. This story, synthesized from seemingly unrelated clues, speaks not of a singular linear progression, but of a grander, more complex lineage.
The evidence, taken together, paints a compelling picture. We have witnessed the Earth's capacity for sudden and devastating change, leaving behind geological signatures of cataclysms that could obliterate entire landscapes. We have examined archaeological marvels that stand as defiant anomalies, structures of impossible precision predating their supposed historical context, suggesting advanced capabilities at times when official narratives claim humanity was still primitive. And we have listened to the collective echoes of memory, the universal myths of floods and forgotten ages, often dismissed as mere folklore, yet strangely consistent across continents and cultures. This confluence of data, stretching from the deepest geological strata to the most ancient oral traditions, urges a reevaluation of human origins and potential that is both radical and necessary. This is not merely about pushing back the timeline by a few centuries. It is about a fundamental shift in perspective. It means confronting the possibility that humanity's story is far older, far more sophisticated, and far more cyclical than the one we commonly tell ourselves. If we accept the implications of this evidence, we must reconsider the very nature of human potential. The astonishing craftsmanship seen in ancient stonework, the precise astronomical alignments found at sites across the globe, and the intricate calendrical systems that chart celestial mechanics with uncanny accuracy. These are not the accidental byproducts of nascent societies. They are the hallmarks of sophisticated cultures, perhaps even of a lost science that grasped principles we are only now beginning to rediscover. Our traditional view often frames humanity as slowly, painstakingly crawling its way out of the primordial mud, gradually accumulating knowledge. But what if this journey has not been a steady climb, but a series of ascents and falls, each peak reaching heights we have yet to fully appreciate? The reevaluation demands that we move beyond the entrenched idea of linear progress. History, as often presented, implies an unbroken line of advancement from crude beginnings to our technologically complex present. But the world's ancient record suggests a different rhythm, the cyclical nature of civilization's rise and fall. Consider the profound implications. If civilizations of remarkable complexity existed in deep antiquity only to be swept away by cataclysmic events, then the story of progress becomes one of rediscovery, of cultural amnesia followed by painstaking reconstruction. The evidence of rapid sedimentation, the vast shifts in sea level, and the obliteration caused by volcanic eruptions are not just geological curiosities. They are the grim mechanics of historical reset buttons. They explain how entire epochs could vanish beneath tons of earth and water, leaving only tantalizing fragments for future generations to unearth. This cyclical pattern is not merely a theoretical construct. It is woven into the very fabric of ancient thought. Many ancient cultures spoke of great ages, followed by periods of destruction and renewal. These were not simply metaphors. They may have been a historical memory, a caution passed down through generations. If we embrace this understanding, then our current era is not the inevitable pinnacle of human achievement, but merely one turn of a very long wheel. Such a perspective is humbling, reminding us that knowledge, technology, and cultural complexity can be lost, only to be painstakingly rebuilt over millennia. It suggests that what we consider primitive might simply be the fragments of a previous, more advanced era, reshaped and reinterpreted by survivors struggling to comprehend a shattered world. What then does an older cyclical history mean for humanity's future resilience? If we acknowledge that societies of great ingenuity have risen and fallen before, it imbues our current moment with a profound sense of responsibility. We are not the first, we are inheritors,
and potentially guardians of a lineage that has endured through unfathomable periods of change. Understanding this past, acknowledging these forgotten antecedents, can offer invaluable lessons for our own survival. The ancient cultures that encoded astronomical knowledge into their monuments, the builders who crafted structures to withstand immense geological forces, and the storytellers who preserved warnings of impending global shifts, they were survivors. Their resilience, their adaptive genius, might hold keys to our own future. If we recognize that our technological advancements are not unprecedented, but perhaps echoes of past achievements, it fosters a vital humility. This humility is not about diminishing our accomplishments, but about placing them within a larger, grander context. It encourages us to look at ancient wisdom not as superstition, but as sophisticated knowledge expressed in a different idiom. It compels us to re-examine the gaps in our historical record with fresh eyes, to seek out the buried evidence not as anomalies to be explained away, but as clues to a richer, more complex human story. This shift from a linear, self-congratulatory view to a cyclical, humble one reorients our relationship with time itself. It makes us aware that even our greatest achievements can be ephemeral, vulnerable to the very forces that shaped our planet. But it also highlights the enduring spirit of human ingenuity, its capacity to rebuild, adapt, and rise again from the ashes of destruction. This perspective reveals our role as inheritors of a cosmic story, one far grander and more complex than currently understood. We are not just descendants of early hominids who learned to chip flint. We may be the latest custodians of a flame lit in a deep, forgotten past, passed down through cycles of creation and cataclysms. The very act of unearthing and synthesizing this evidence connects us to a lineage that stretches back beyond written records, beyond the commonly accepted dawn of civilization. It means that the drive for knowledge, the impulse to build, the quest to understand the heavens, these are not new phenomena unique to our age. They are intrinsic aspects of human consciousness, echoing across vast spans of time, carried forward by those who remembered, even when the memory was shrouded in myth. This cosmic story suggests a profound interconnectedness, not just across human cultures, but across epochs. The builders of the megalithic wonders, the keepers of the cosmic calendars, and the survivors of the great floods, they are not entirely lost to us. Their legacy, though fragmented and buried, continues to inform our world in subtle ways, etched into the landscape, encoded in myths, and perhaps even embedded in our collective consciousness. We stand at a pivotal moment, equipped with new technologies and a growing openness to challenge established paradigms, allowing us to finally begin piecing together this ancient lineage. The challenge is immense, demanding not only scientific rigor, but also a willingness to confront unsettling truths about our place in the long sweep of history. To accept this grander narrative is to embark on a quest of self-discovery unlike any other. It is to acknowledge that our beginnings are not as simple as we once believed, and our potential is not as limited as linear history might suggest. We become archaeologists of our own deep past, not just of physical ruins, but of the very idea of human civilization itself. This journey into the forgotten ages compels us to look at the Earth differently, not merely as a stage for our drama, but as a living archive, holding secrets of incredible depth, silently waiting for us to learn how to read its ancient script. The unfinished story of humanity lies buried not just beneath sediment and sea, but also within the confines of our own perceptions. By reclaiming this ancient lineage, by synthesizing the disparate clues left behind, we begin to write the next chapter of a story that is truly cosmic in its scale and profound in its implications.